Hello and welcome to another episode of CatSci podcast. Today we are going to discuss Peak Purrformance. Peak Purrformance is the certifying body for cats, started by our own Tori Peterson and guest Bridget Craig. Through Peak Purrformance, you can earn various titles, including a Trick Cat title, a Trail Companion title, and a Cat Ambassador certification. Join us as we explore what Peak Purrformance is and how it may alter our perceptions of what our companion cats can do.
Welcome back to the CatSci podcast. Today we're going to talk about something that is really special to me because it is my new project. I've started this with a good friend of mine. I won't bore you with the details of my background since you guys already know about that with Space Cat Academy and my position here at CatSci podcast, but I do want to introduce you to Bridget. So Bridget, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Bridget. I guess about myself going way back. So I studied in undergrad, I studied zoology and Spanish, which the Spanish was unrelated, but I studied zoology with an emphasis in animal behavior because that was always my thing, animal behavior and welfare. It's always my main interest. And from there, I actually got really involved in the dog training world. So after college, I did a few internships, some canine behavior internships. I interned at Best Friends Animal Society in Utah. I just got really involved in the dog world, which is great. I also think that's very accessible for a lot of people because dog training is so common and it's a really great way to get your foot in the door with training and behavior. But I always felt like I wanted to do something more, like start my own business, branch out and train other species. And then Tori and I created Peak Purrformance. It was a really great way to combine my love of training and animal behavior with my obsession with cats. So also currently I'm a graduate student at Canisius College. I'm studying anthrozoology. I don't know if you guys have covered or talked about what anthrozoology is in your podcast, but it's basically a field that focuses on humanity's relationships with other animals. So anyway, I'm part-time grad student and also doing the day-to-day business of Peak Purrformance. And it's just a great way to continue my interest in behavior and training and welfare in sort of a new fun way.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to have you on here because I love working with both of you guys. So this is like the icing on a cake on a Friday right now with Kristen and Bridget. So So Bridget, tell us a little bit about what is Peak Purrformance?
Sure. So officially, Peak Purrformance is a certification and titling company for cats. And what that is, what are certifications and titles? A lot of people have never heard of that before. It's basically different goals that you could work towards with your cats. And we have a couple different tracks that you can follow in Peak Purrformance. We have our Trick Cat titles, where we have several different levels of Trick Cat titles that you can obtain. You have to go in order, but for example, for the first one, there's a whole long list of tricks you can choose from. You have to choose 15, and you basically send us videos of you and your cat doing these tricks. We will watch the videos, check off the tricks, certify you, and then you get a patch and a certificate in the mail. So it's fun. It's just a way, it gives you a goal to work towards and kind of give you some parameters, sort of a training plan to follow. So we have our Trick Cat titles. We also have hiking titles, where if you're the kind of person that takes your cat on walks or even stroller rides or hikes, whatever it may be, if you go on outings, you can work towards our Trail Companion titles. And what that is, you just keep track of the miles that you walk or hike or carry your cat in a backpack. We're very flexible. And then we have certain milestones where you send us your miles. So the first one is 50 miles. You send us your miles, and again, we send you a patch and a certificate. And then finally, we have our Cat Ambassador certification. And this is a certification, it's sort of it's its own entity where the test items mimic some of the everyday challenges that your cat will encounter being a normal house cat. So, can your cat accept a friendly stranger coming in the front door? Can you pick up your cat's feet and put a harness on them and put them in their carrier? And can they remain calm throughout the entire thing? And that's great, especially if you have a cat where some of those different situations might be challenging for them. It's a great goal. It's a great, some great things to work towards. And you can also use that certification. You can show it to your landlord or your pet sitter, just to show that your cat is a good ambassador for the species. Yeah, and that about covers it. We can really get into the nitty gritty, but that's overall what peak performance is.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to describe it. It's one of those things where, especially with the Cat Ambassador program, it gives you a goal to work towards, like you were saying, with cats who might be afraid of certain things or be a little bit unsure. It gives you a way to go through, focus on some of those weaknesses, and come out stronger on the other side. So, it gives us kind of a way to say, oh, it might be a little bit of a challenge at first. It might not be your cat's favorite thing at first, but pairing it with food and pairing it with attention will build the bond between you and your cat, and make them more confident. I mean, even just going to the vet, which we've talked about at length in our previous episodes, cats sometimes really have a hard time at the vet or in new places. And the Cat Ambassador certification is a great way to prepare them for everyday life. And it's important to add that you can do this with kittens to prepare them and get ahead of it before any problems arise, or you can kind of do some behavior modification and help out even the most senior cats feel better about some daily situations.
Absolutely. I mean, going off of that, my oldest cat is 17 and I do all of this stuff with her. With the trail companion titles, I never thought she would be my adventure cat who would want to go out on a leash and harness. I thought it would be my 2-year-old cat who is crazy, but my 17-year-old cat, Sophie, loves it. So it just goes to show, yeah, you can do it with cats of any age. And to your point too about, some of these situations, especially in the Cat Ambassador certification, might be especially challenging for some cats. That's okay. I have so many people say, oh, I would do the Cat Ambassador certification, but my cat hates the carrier, or I could never get a harness on my cat. And I say, that's okay. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It means this is a goal for you to work towards. Start with baby steps, use lots of fantastic treats. It's not meant to be easy, and that's kind of the point. A lot of cats struggle with these things, and that's why it's important to work on them, because it's really crucial things, especially being calm in a carrier, things like that. So that's kind of the point of why we did it. It's hard, but it's important.
So I've been working on the Trail Companion program, which is our cat hiking titles. And it's funny because Peach loves to go out on adventures, but she gets car sick, and I know I've mentioned this before. She gets car sick, and she can even get sick in the carrier and motion sickness. And so her version of hiking is just walking around in the woods behind our house. And as long as she can go there on her own, and I just let her kind of roam on the harness and leash. And we nick away at the goal of 50 miles, but we do it at about, I would say, a maximum of half a mile each time, because she can't be carried. She can't be in the backpack. So she is doing all 50 miles on her own. And even though it's not going to be we'll do it in a week kind of thing, but by the end, when we do it, I am going to be so proud of that cat for walking 50 miles on her own that it will be worth every 0.1 mile on my Trail Companion app.
Absolutely. It gives people a reason to sort of work with their cats on maybe a daily basis, maybe just a few times a week, but that might be a few more times a week than they were doing it before. It's good motivation for people, honestly. And that kind of gets into why we started it. Because people do these things with dogs like no problem. Everyone, I mean, maybe not everyone, but everyone hikes with their dogs. Everyone does trick training, and these certifications and titles exist for dogs, and thousands and thousands of people do it. But I think people don't think about the fact that cats can very easily do these things too. And it's just a way to, give people a reason to work with their cats on a consistent basis. But also for people who maybe wouldn't train their cats in the first place, it's a nice motivator. It's a fun way to do it. It gives them some parameters to follow, especially like with the trick training, it's kind of easy to, run out of ideas of what tricks to train next. So it gives you something to follow, lots of great ideas, and just, it enriches your cat's lives. So any way to just keep working with them and making their lives a little more interesting and enriching.
Absolutely. I mean, even just, when I came up with this idea, and this has kind of been brewing in my head for at least a year, and I've finally found the right time and the right fit to work on this and finally get it up and going. And one of the biggest things was when I started pondering what I wanted this to look like and how I wanted us to work on this, I thought about what my life looks like with cats and what the average cat looks like. Of course, I would say, an emotionally stable cat lady. I hate saying that I'm a crazy cat lady, so I will say an emotionally stable cat lady.
No shame, no shame.
But I mean, my life by and large really revolves around the well-being of my animals. And so there's tons of enrichment in our house, and our setup is great for them, and I still feel like I can do more. And so I thought about my goals, and again, like I said, sometimes I slack about, if things get busy and I don't do things. And I've always found that giving myself a goal to work towards helps me stick with the program. And I know that everybody's life is busy, even just my Trick of the Month Club members. They all have a blast, but we all have various things going on in our lives. And so it just keeps people on track. And I think that's fabulous. And that's really the core of peak performance is you're working up that mountain and you're gonna get there. And it doesn't matter if it's gonna be an easy way up or if it's like Mount Everest, but you'll get there. And
and there's no time limit.
Nope.
You can teach one trick a month, and that's fine. I don't want people to feel intimidated when they look at the long list of all the trick options they can choose or looking at. So our highest hiking title is 500 miles, which that is a literal mountain. That's insane. But I don't want people to feel intimidated when they look at the requirements. It's a matter of starting small. So start by teaching sit or high five or a nose target, just one trick, or go on one little hike with your cat. And, it's going to enrich. It's fun for everybody. The cats love it. You'll have fun. And I think once you get your momentum going, it gets easier too. It's just a matter of starting and going at your own pace.
I also want to add, so Bridget kind of already mentioned that there's plenty of certifying agencies for dogs, but as far as I know, this is one of the only certifying agencies for cats, or maybe the only. I'm not sure if there are others, but I think that just having an organization that you can look at and see, hey, people are doing this with their cats. This can be a model for what can be done. If there are no organizations like this in existence, it kind of gives people that false idea that, again, cats can't do it because nobody's doing it with them. So I think just by having this in existence, it's something that's going to benefit cat owners by seeing, hey, I can do this with my cat as well.
It adds some credibility. I think people are so quick to say, like, oh, train my cats? Like, do people do that? What? Like, that sounds crazy. But the more common that this becomes, hopefully that mindset will become less common. That's always the goal, right? Like, people knowing that their cats can do anything a dog can do, basically. And also people realizing that it's actually really important to do these things with their cats. Like, it's really good for their physical and mental well-being. So yeah, that's the goal. Hopefully more people realizing that this is possible.
It's true. Even just the other day, I saw, well, you can't train a cat. And I'm like, tell that to my three, tell that to all of my students. We have people all over the world, cats of all situations, of plucked off the street like my three, or champion show cats, all the whole gamut. There's intelligence right under your nose that is waiting to be opened, and it's kind of like Pandora's box in a way. When you think of the cat as just a snoozing little couch warmer or something, it's one thing, but as soon as you start seeing what they're able to accomplish, you not only find out how intelligent they are and how much that we can miss out on and they can miss out on if we don't do these things with them. They have a lot to offer. And the biggest thing is, when you teach cats things, it opens the lines of communication between you and the cat. So instead of always being negative and saying, get off the counter, get over, stop doing this, stop doing that, you give them alternative ways to work on doing the right thing. We have to teach cats what we do want from them, because otherwise, if they're bored, they're gonna do what they want to do, and it's not gonna be what you want them to do. And Peach tells me that every day if I slack on training. But it gives you this communication where even the silliest of tricks, teaching your cat, I don't know, teaching them a high five. For a cat that might be interested in visitors coming over your house, but they don't necessarily, know how to interact with them. Sometimes even just me giving high fives to my cats loosens them up in front of visitors, and then they're more likely to accept someone coming over that might have been scary at first, that came in sort of abruptly or something. And it just builds this confidence in them. There's this openness, this communication, confidence through just working with them and finding out more about the little creature in your house.
Yeah, and I think once you start training your cats, you'll start to think, how did I ever not train them before? You can just see with your own eyes so clearly, like, oh my God, they love it.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a little bit previously, but sometimes we hear as cat trainers this idea that, well, why, when you train your cat, you're kind of taking away their independence. And so people shy away from training their cat because they think, like, well, cats are independent by nature. I don't need them to be obedient to me. But I think people miss this idea that cats are always learning from us. They're always, quote unquote, being trained because they're always learning from the consequences of their behavior. So if we understand the principles of learning and how to use that to create better communication with our cats, it's definitely something that's going to strengthen that bond. So I'm wondering, Bridget's already kind of touched on some of these benefits of training your cat, but what would you say specifically is the benefit of doing something like peak performance?
Well, I loved your point about sort of independence and autonomy, that is something that training will give to cats. I mean, autonomy and control is a huge facet of welfare. The more control that an animal has over their environment, the better welfare that they have. And so I think about, teaching these tricks to cats. They might go from constantly begging for food and getting yelled at to they might offer a sit, or they might, they offer these tricks. They have more control over their environment because they learn what actions elicit positive reinforcement. So, and that sort of also touches on the communication between you and your cat. They learn sort of what you expect from them, and it becomes really sort of a two-way communication rather than saying, just get off that counter or leave me alone, don't steal my breakfast, sort of thing.
Absolutely. And you have to think, when you think of these behaviors, and I say this at length, I say it every time because it's something that I just really like to drive home, is when you think about these behaviors of, they're begging for my breakfast, or, they're getting up on something, you have to think of why they're doing those behaviors. They don't do it for no reason. We always do things for some reason, some benefit. And generally, especially with these counter surfing situations, one, it could be about attention, but also even just providing them with an environment that is appropriate for them, the high spaces, the enrichment that they need to not have to go on the counter to get their natural behaviors met.
So we've kind of talked about the benefit of peak performance for your cat, but what is the benefit for the actual cat guardian of doing something like peak performance?
It gives you an opportunity to learn more about your cat and see what their preferences are, to see how they learn, to see how to meet their needs in better ways. And of course, always to open the line of communication so that you can benefit more from that relationship with your cat. When we are in a perpetual state of being annoyed with the animal, or, irritated with their behaviors, or even just, okay, my cat sits on the couch and is pretty logy about things. They don't really do things. They played when they were a kitten, but now they just don't, and they just sluggish and hanging out. This gives an opportunity for revival of that bond, and to expand the bond with your cat. So it gives you a way to see how multifaceted cats are, their intelligence, the way that they learn, the way that they figure things out. The reason why I am in the field of behavior is because my absolute favorite thing to watch is an animal learning something new and seeing those gears turn and seeing how they perceive what we're asking them and then acting upon it. I know most people won't nerd out as much as I do with that, but it's a really special thing to watch. There's this learning something new about someone so well is always something that's really interesting. Whether they're 1 or they're 17, there's so much to see about a cat. The other thing is we're able to kind of get into their world a little bit more. And when we get into their world, we're able to understand them better. And like I said, with the frustration, it helps us see why the animal does something. There's so much media out there saying, well, your cat just does things to spite you, or your cat just does things to be a jerk. And it's not. Are they bored? Are they lonely? Are they hungry? Whatever it is, there is a reason. There is always a reason why they're doing it. And it gives you more information as the guardian. And when you're more in tune with that animal, you can see it blossom in front of your eyes, but also look at their health and their welfare and stay above it.
As cat guardians, we obviously love our cats so much. So if we can enrich their lives by training and going on walks and things like that, why wouldn't we? Because that benefits us too, just knowing that we are taking the best care of them that we possibly can. On a very selfish note, I have, and this is completely anecdotal, not proven by any science, but in my own experience, training my cats, I've noticed a correlation specifically with my young, crazy, insane cat, that on the days we train, he sleeps with me in bed at night and like cuddles, which is very interesting. A few weeks ago, I was like on it, on my training game, training every night. And I noticed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he slept with me in bed. Friday, we didn't train and he didn't sleep with me. And of course, like he's snuggly. So it's not, he'll still snuggle sometimes when we don't train, but like it seems like that's become a rule in our house. If I want Miles to snuggle with me at night, we do a training session during the day, and then that solves it. Yeah, so on a selfish note, I benefit from training in that way too, because who doesn't want to snuggle more with their cats? Like it's like the best part of cat ownership. So anyway, that's interesting, and I'd love to hear if anybody else has observed anything similar in their cats like that. Interesting. So anyway, there might be some unexpected benefits to you that you may not even realize yet until you start training.
Yeah, I actually have noticed something similar. So not my cat sleeping with me, but my cat Bo, who's kind of my trick cat, we notice the days where he doesn't get training. He'll kind of like walk around the house like aimlessly and just be like meowing and meowing, but he doesn't do that. Like even if we just do like a 5-minute session, he will like kind of like you were saying earlier, just go to sleep. Like he's happy and content after he got that. So I definitely think, there's the benefit to him, but also to us as well, to feel like we've done something to make them happy and to kind of fulfill them. And when we look at the cat human relationship in our research, we have found that it's very similar to a caretaker offspring relationship. And so you can kind of think of it in that way, that if you had kids, you want to pay attention to your kids a little bit every day. You wouldn't want to just straight up ignore them all the time. So something to keep in mind, that this is a relationship and there's going to be a benefit both to the cat and to you as the human guardian as well.
You touch on a really good point too, that it can be as simple as 5 minutes. I think it's easy to get intimidated. It's easy to think like, oh, I have to set an hour aside tonight to train my cat. And I have to work on this and this and this and this with them, create a list. But like it can literally be 5 minutes. And a lot of cats can't work for much longer than that. Shorter sessions are better. Like an hour is excessive for a cat. So honestly, you should keep it short. And I think that makes it much more accessible to people and a lot more doable, because people are busy. Not everyone is a full-time cat trainer. Most people are not a full-time cat trainer. So that kind of makes it easier too.
So you've already talked a little bit about these titles that people can earn, but can you talk a little more about the actual process?
Sure, absolutely. So, because we have people all over the world, cat trainers from all over the world who are working with us, it's all video based. So, the process starts when you go through the trick list on the website, pick out which tricks that you want to earn. For our apprentice trick cat, you are choosing from a long list and picking out 15 that you want to work on. You work through a proficiency where you can ask the cat to do the trick with a verbal or visual hand signal, and then they are able to be rewarded for their behavior or the exercise that you're doing. Then, once you have your 15 tricks all videotaped, you'll send those to us. We evaluate them. And as long as you meet all of the criteria, then we approve you and you can go off and get your certificate and your patch. This goes for every step of the way, from apprentice through champion trick cat. and you'll just go through, see what tricks are eligible for that title, or if you have a write-in, we can also see if that is in that category and approve that. And you can go through and earn your patches and your certificates that way.
Yep. And so the trail companion titles are very different. So for that, we're looking at your mileage. Our very first trail companion title is 50 miles, and it goes up from there. The next one is 150, then it goes to 250 miles, and finally, the big one is 500 miles. And there's a number of different ways you can track your miles. Some people, if they use like a Fitbit or some sort of tracking app, you can send us screenshots of your hikes so that we can see exactly what you did. But you can also just sort of keep an Excel or Google sheet where you list the date each hike happened. You can say where it happened, like the trail, if there's a name for it, or you can just say my backyard and then miles. And some of it kind of goes off of the honor code. You know, we trust that people who are working towards this, they're not going to lie. It's in their best interest to be honest and tell the truth. So once you reach that certain milestone, you just send us the list of your hikes. And then again, we'll send you the code to get your certificate and your patch. With the very important caveat that we want you to do this only if your cat is comfortable. Because there are plenty of cats that really might not even want to leave the house. They might, there's some cats that might never get used to a harness. We don't want you to push your cat too hard to where they're stressed and uncomfortable and you're doing it only for the title or you're doing it only for yourself. So we really emphasize safety. So keeping your cat on a leash and harness. You can also keep them in a backpack as well or in a stroller. Have identification on them just in case something were to happen. If you're taking your cat outside, you'll want to use some sort of flea and tick preventative. Just really emphasizing that this is a great thing to do, taking your cat on outings within these parameters. So just keeping that in mind, because I know with my young rambunctious cat, I thought for sure like he would be my adventure cat. He'd be all over it. And I got him a harness and leash and started training him. And he didn't care about the harness at all. He was totally fine. But the moment I brought him outside, he was terrified. And we tried everything and it was not happening. So, and that's totally fine. He's my trick cat now and there's no problem with that. So just keeping in mind that you're doing this for the cat and yourself, but not just for yourself.
Absolutely. I think it's an important thing that you mentioned, Bridget, that we only want to do things that the cats are comfortable with, and we provide multiple ways to enrich your cat. So if your cat doesn't like going outside, then go to a different program. So you could go to our trick program instead of the hiking program. There's hint, hint, as we expand, there will also be other cat sports and activities that you can do as well. So we are opening the doorway to doing different things and having a variety so that you aren't feeling like you're stuck in a certain way and that your cat just isn't having fun with it. The biggest thing is safety and happiness of the cat.
So finally, our third program is the Cat Ambassador Certification. So like we already explained earlier in the podcast, it's basically a way to simulate different scenarios that the everyday house cat will encounter. And you'll film these little scenarios and send them to us, just like with the trick videos. So things like a friendly stranger coming in the door. And we have a lot of specific instructions on our website because for that, you have to film for 90 seconds. You need to have the cat's body in the video the whole time so that we can observe behavior. And for every single test item in the Cat Ambassador certification, we want to see no more than 2 stress-related behaviors from a specific list. So, for example, for the carrier test item, you'll send your cat into the carrier using a cue. You can give them a treat for going in the carrier, close the door, and then you'll film them in the carrier. And we don't want to see more than to stress-related behaviors. So your cat can meow, and for example, or they could do like a little bit of digging at the door. That's fine, because for a lot of cats, being calm in the carrier is a relative term. But any more than two stress-related behaviors, you would have to train a little bit more and redo the certification, because the point is we want your cat to be calm throughout all of these test items. Some of the other test items include brushing. Does your cat accept a brush? Petting. Can you pick up your cat's paws? Can you put a harness on them? Things like that. But something else that's unique about the Cat Ambassador certification is that we require you to sign a pledge to receive the certification. And basically, it's a pledge. It's you as a cat guardian pledging that you will do your best to be a good guardian and be a good ambassador for cats everywhere. And some of the items on that pledge include providing necessary veterinary care for your cat to live a healthy and comfortable life, feeding them a species-specific diet that provides them the necessary nutrients, also pledging to not declaw your cat in the future, which is really important. Also, like taking your cat in public, cleaning up their waste if they go to the bathroom, and basically just setting a good example and being a good ambassador for cat owners everywhere. So that's something that is unique about the Cat Ambassador certification, but very important.
So, one thing we've been seeing more and more in the training world is alternative animals being trained for some of these working roles. And so we often think of dogs, serving as bomb detection dogs, drug sniffing dogs, but we're even seeing animals like the African pouched rat. They're being trained for some of these bomb detection roles as well. And there's some benefits to having alternative animals. For example, the rat doesn't weigh very much, so it's not going to set off a bomb the same way a bigger dog would. So I'm wondering what you think about cats in some of these working roles. Do you think that going through peak performance could help some of these cats to be trained for working roles, things like drug sniffing or medical assistance?
I think that's a really good point. I don't know that I have a definite answer to this. I think that more research needs to be done overall. But some options that I could foresee cats doing are situations where flexibility is involved. Cats have an amazing sense of smell, and depending on the cat's personality, just like depending on a drug dog's personality or something like that, if you have the right animal for the job, it can, I'm sure, be done. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of stigma against cats in terms of training in general. So I think we need to overcome that first before people will really be on board with choosing them as a working species. However, even our cat ambassador program is geared towards the transition of a cat from a well socialized and confident animal to maybe setting them up for a role as a therapy animal or some sort of emotional support animal for their guardians, or if they're going out as a therapy animal for in assistance homes or a reading to children program. Elliot has done some programs before with the Big Brother network where a child who's being sponsored by a mentor will come into our vet office and Elliot will do his charming self and children will read to him. So I think depending on the job, cats can definitely do it. There's increasing roles for them, especially as therapy animals. And something I think they could be really good at is their intuitive nature sets them up for success as anxiety support service animals and things like that. Whether people choose to use them as those working roles is, I guess, up to the handler. But I know that my cats are really in tune when I'm having an anxious day or something like that. They flock to me and they position themselves on my chest and provide that deep pressure therapy that is really helpful for me. I will be candid in saying I never taught my cats that. Can you teach them that? Yes, you could. Through positive reinforcement, I could reinforce my cats having a cue to come onto my chest and just sit there. And I think that would be fairly straightforward to teach them. And there are certain ways that you could teach them to carry things. My cats certainly carry their toys around the house. And if you provide a high enough value, they could do, medicine retrieval and things like that. That doesn't weigh too much. So, yeah, I think there are roles out there for cats. It's just a matter of us figuring out what the best scenarios and the best working relationships are in those situations.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. And there are cats already that are used as therapy animals. Our cat ambassador certification would be a great starting point to training your cat to do therapy work. I can't speak to the bomb sniffing, and for liability purposes, no, peak performance certifications do not qualify your cat to be a bomb sniffing cat. But
please
I
don't
think
put them in danger.
yes, we never told you to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think again, it speaks to the stigma of the stigma against cats. But I think it's true that cats are capable of so many things, and we're only just hitting the surface right now. I think one tricky thing that sort of is working against them in terms of being more of an assistance cat is just their size, because like service dogs, labs and retrievers are the most common breeds for service dogs because they're so big, so they can actually physically support their person. So that's the one tricky thing with cats, that they couldn't do things like that. But other than that, I think the sky's the limit, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future with cat training, because I think there's a lot of potential there.
I agree. What are your thoughts on it, Kristen?
Yeah, I would agree. I actually had someone contact me who was trying to teach their cat how to detect when their blood sugar was low. And they had told me that they were actually successful in doing that. So I think that, just like you said, that cats have been underestimated in their abilities to serve in some of these working roles. And as Tori mentioned, scientifically, we're finding more and more that cats are in tune to our emotions and our moods. So recently, research found that cats are in tune to human emotions and that they will adjust their behavior in response. And same goes for human moods. A person who is in a depressive mood, the cat is more likely to approach them and rub on them. So I think that, again, just there's a lot of skills that cats have, even social skills, that have just been underestimated. And I think that programs like Peak Performance are really great because they're showing what can be done with cats. And often we don't really believe something until we see it. So just having this resource online, being able to see videos of cats doing these things, is kind of a game changer. So I love it. And that kind of brings up another point that I wanted to mention. I think when people look at cats versus dogs, they think of these traits as being species differences. So cats are this way, dogs are this way. Dogs are able to leave the home, they're able to go to the dog park, go to dog training and socialization classes, but cats can't do those things. But I think one important thing that people need to realize is that we're treating our dogs and cats very differently. The cats, they might not really ever leave the home except to go to the vet, versus, again, the dog is leaving the home all the time. So they have that life experience in order to feel comfortable outside of the home in novel situations. So I think, again, more and more as people are learning that, hey, cats can be socialized outside of the home, they can be trained, and more people see that we might actually see a shift in how not only the perception of cats is within our society, but also, again, these roles that they take. And as it stands right now legally, only dogs really can serve as service animals under the ADA. Mini horses, in some instances, can serve, but cats technically can't even be service animals. So I'm interested to see, as society, progresses, will that change? Will we expand what it means to be a service animal or an assistance animal? And again, I just think it's something people need to consider, that it's maybe not what it means to be a cat, but the experiences that we're giving our cats.
It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep.
People think, oh,
Yep.
you can't take a cat for a walk. You can't, or like, I can't do that with my cat. He would be terrified. So they don't. And then the cat is terrified when they have to leave the house. Versus if you approach it like you would a puppy. So if you have a kitten, like, oh, I have to get my kitten used to the harness. I'm going for rides in the car and taking little walks around the neighborhood. It would be totally different. It's just the way, I don't know, public perception and the way we approach it.
Yeah, and that actually brings up what I wanted to mention as well, is even within dogs, personality matters. Not every dog is going to be wanting to go out and be super social at the dog park either. So individual variation is true within any species. So I think that's another thing people need to realize. Of course, not every cat is going to be comfortable going out on a hike, but neither is maybe every dog, especially a dog that has not been well socialized, maybe like we're seeing with a lot of these cats. And I think also, again, people don't offer these kitten training classes, but when I was at Oregon State, we offered classes to kittens 3 to 8 months old. And we had class sizes ranging from 5 kittens to 11 kittens, and they learned all the same kind of tricks and behaviors we would teach dogs in this type of a class. So again, you have to kind of assess your own cat's personality a little bit if that's something that they're going to be comfortable with. But don't let your bias, it's just like Bridget said, self-fulfilling prophecy. How you treat that animal is really going to impact the outcome of the behavior of that animal.
Kristen, I'm
Absolutely.
curious. Do you keep in touch with anyone who did your kitten classes? Like, do you know what they do with their cats now that they're adults?
Oh, yeah. I keep in touch with a lot of them. One person that comes to mind is the cat's name is Stanley, and I think it's Stanley Shenanigans on Instagram if you want to follow him. But she still will take him on walks and hikes. I don't know if they still go out on the kayak, but there were several times she sent me Snapchats of them going to the beach and stuff like that. So absolutely, these cats are still doing a lot of things as adults. So there can be benefits from engaging in these activities. So is there another piece of advice that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I want people to know that they shouldn't be intimidated by these long trick lists or like the crazy amount of miles they'd have to hike for these titles. You can build tricks off of each other and it honestly gets easier. But I would say just start small, start with baby steps, and then just see where it takes you.
Great. So I'd like to thank Bridget for joining us today. And of course, Tori had to be here anyway. So great to have you as always. But could you share where we can find you on social media?
Yeah, so we are on Instagram and Facebook at Peak Performance. And we also have our website, which is peakperformance.com.
And that's Purrformance. Very
Yes.
important.
Performance.
Well, thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. And as always, make sure you follow us on Instagram and YouTube and stay tuned for our next episode.
This episode was brought to you by Mauai's Cat Behavior and Space Cat Academy. Visit us online at mauais.com and spacecatacademy.com.